Hello everyone. Would you like to create your own open source project, or do you have already an open source project and you have some challenge to going through them? So you're in the right place today. We're gonna be sharing one of the projects that we have been working for a while, and yeah, we also have some tools that have been helping us a lot during the process. So well, without taking so much time here, I just want to call our specialist, AI specialist, Java champion, and also the creator of this project that we'll be sharing in a few minutes, Mani Sarkar. Hey, Mani, how are you?
Hey, Hugo, I'm good. How are you? Long time no speak.
Good, great. Good to see you, man. And yeah, we have been working with this project for quite time, right? I think
Yeah, I
we
think so.
started the out of the box this channel with the project.
Yeah, I
If
think
I
so. I think
remember well.
it's almost on 1 year. If you look at the the pull request says 11 months. So it says it's almost 1 year. And I think I have been working on the project even longer than that, but I think we've been working on this pull request for at least 1 year. Um, but it's still good. I mean, doesn't really matter if it's been a year or less or more.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I think that's a lot of things from this experience, right? That it's interesting to share with other people here. And also to help us with this discussion, I want to call my good friend here and software architect, Java expert, and now a Python developer, right, Pedro? Hey, Pedro, how are you?
Hey, Hugo. Hey, Money. I'm good, and you? Well, I know that today are your day, right? Guys, uh, I'll be just a guest here, making difficult questions. I think it will be a easy day for me today.
Oh, is that okay? We're looking forward to it. Actually, we're expecting some questions from you, so I don't think it'll be an easy day. You will have to definitely find some angles to ask us questions and probe Yogo and myself to see how far you can get answers from us, and hopefully we can give you some answers. But it'll be good to share the open source work that we've been doing. So I actually just had a look at the pull request. So the one I created is almost a year old because I created it in May. This first week of May, and it was only after a few months, or after some months, you joined in, and then you created your pull request. But I think in between that time, you were experimenting with a lot of things, and you were trying to contribute, and you're trying to learn the cloud platform plus the tool itself. So why don't we share with the audience what we are actually really talking about? So I'm going to quickly do a screen share, and you can always, yourself and Pedro, you can always jump in to ask questions, say things. So today we are going to be showing the audience, everybody is
Wait,
joining
Mani.
now and
Yeah,
later on.
just before letting you share the screen, let me call here or the member here to the talk. Hey, Bruno, how are you?
Hey guys, hey, hello everyone. Hey Money, I'm going to
Hello.
interrupt the presentation right now, man. Hey Pedro, hey Hugo, how you guys doing?
Great, great. Thanks for joining, Bruno. And today
Okay,
we'll be
so
talking about open source. Yeah.
I understand, but here's my situation, right? I'm actually in a birthday for my my god's daughter. How do I say that? It's my godchild's
Yeah, goddaughter, you can say that.
goddaughter, right? But it's near here, my house, so I drove here to say a quick hello for you guys, and I have to drive back.
Well, you
You know?
didn't need to do that, because I know you already told us that you couldn't make it, so we would have understood. So
Right, I
would have been
understand
fine.
that, but I think today is a special day, right? And so I just wanted to share with you guys really quick this, and then I'll let you talk about artificial intelligence and all the fun stuff, right? But today is Labor Day, right? I think I'm not sure if it's in UK is Labor Day.
Yeah, it's the same here.
Yeah, so yeah, it's in several countries Labor Day, right? So it's a day that we celebrate working day, and I think it's a very important day for all of us because we're all working guys, right? We have to be here. We're working hard. We're working a lot. It's a holiday. It's a holiday for you, Money.
It is. Yes, it has been a day off for me. Yeah, I
Right.
did
So it's a day
nothing other
off for
than
all
have
of
fun.
us, and we're still here, right? Working and doing things and sharing things with all of you guys. And I really appreciate, but we really appreciate you that's watching us today, right? Because you're also on a day off and you're taking your time. And I think there's nothing more valuable than, than you taking your time, right? But what I want to share with you guys that today for me it's an even more special day because today is the day that I celebrate the death of my father. I remember, I'm not sure how they say that in English, Money, but I remember the death of my father because my father was a very hardworking person, and he died on the 1st of May, right? And so, I like to always remember him, and although I do remember him every day, I do remember him especially today because my father was the one that got me into this, right? That we are right here, right now, right? Because I always remember that my father would tell me, "No, Bruno, you have to go into computers, right? Because you're gonna get it's a amazing field, right? It's gonna be the future." And I got my first computer money when I was 8 years old, right? It was a TSR 80. And my dad was crazy. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea what that thing was for, but he would just buy things, right? One day someone told him that, you could, when a sales guy, I told him, yeah, you could add some memory for the computer. And he said, okay, so how we do that? So we got the computer, we packed it up, we sent to a factory in another state, and so they could solder in some extra memory to it. And then the computer came back like a month later, and okay, so we have new memory. What we do with that? There's nothing to do with that, right? Because we didn't know what to use that memory for, right? It's like there's no software that actually use that memory, the extra memory, right? And so it was, my father was such a crazy. So one day he calls me, Money, and he says, "Bruno, what's a scanner for?" And I'm like, "Oh, a scanner? Well, it's you get that thing, and it's for you to bring things into the computer." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you can have a picture and you can scan it. It's like a photocopier that you bring things in the computer." And he said, "Okay, what else?" And I said, "Well, you can put maybe text, right? You can get like a text and put inside the computer, right?" And said, "Okay, what else?" I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. That's what you for, right? So you bring like paper and documents into the computer." And I said, "Why? Are you trying to buy a computer?" And said, "No, I was in the store yesterday, and there was one, and I bought it." And so he said, "Yeah, when you came here to visit me, you can take it home with you." So, and that's how I started, right? I started with my dad just kind of buying those things because he thought it was interesting, and he just gave it to me, and that's how I got me into computer. And then one day, my dad wanted me to, he did not want me to work, right? Because he thought that I should finish university first. That's the most important thing. That once I finished university, everything was possible. And so, and I started working on, talking about Labor Day, right? I started working on the second month I was in university, right? Because that's what I got from him. I always saw him working and doing things and building companies and doing this kind of thing. So I was trying to do the same thing. And so I started working, and he was against it. And then he insisted so much that I stopped working, right? Because I said, "No, I'm gonna give you money, right? So stop working, focus on university." And I totally understand that. He was an engineer, he couldn't work until he finished university. So he suffered a little bit. My family suffered. My sister, my mom suffered because he was married and and had a kids before he finished university. So all it was very hard for him. So I could understand him, but I really want to work. So I went back to Curitiba to visit him one day, and I was like, "Dad, this whole thing about not working is not working for me, man. I got to work, right? I'm going to go back to work." And so he's like, "No, you shouldn't do that." And I said, "Yes, I'm going to do it." And he said, "No, you shouldn't do it." "Yes, I'm going to do it." And then we start fighting, really bad fight, right? We start fighting a lot. And, and I threw things at him, and he yelled at me, and it's like, terrible. And so, and we were in the beach. It's like 1 hour away from Curitiba, and I just went back home. I was pissed off with him. He's really mad at me. Like 1 hour later, we're still mad at each other. And so when I got home, the phone is ringing, right? And so I answer the phone, and the voice on the other side, actually, the guy I'm going to visit in his house right now, right? Luis, that's his name, right? So the voice on the other side says, Bruno, Newton Gadgets from Sun is looking for a trainee, and he says that if you want, the position is yours, right? Because I was already working with Sun before, right? So I was working for a partner of Sun, and I was volunteer. Everything that Sun did, I was volunteer to that. And so I said, man, that's a huge opportunity. I gotta work for Sun. That's amazing, right? That's like dream come true. And so my dad, he's still pissed off with me. He was completely against me working, right? He said, that's such a bad idea. You should not do that. But even then, he sat down with me on his computer to help me write my resume for me to send to Sun. And I sent that resume in. I started working for Sun about a month later after that. And the day I joined Sun, there was this guy that was giving a Solaris training. And I went to see his training because my boss, Newton, my boss, right? That he actually lives near me those days, by the way. So my boss said, Bruno, go watch the Solaris course, right? This is your first day here. So just go watch this course, right? This is for this week. And so this guy from the US, that he was there, and we went out for lunch, and he said, what are you doing here? Your first day at Sun, so nice, right? So what are you doing? I said, well, I'm a software developer, right? And I really want to find what I can do in software development inside Sun. I don't know exactly what it is, right? Because everything I saw at Sun was just selling hardware, right? And so this guy said, yeah, but Sun does a lot of software, right? We even have this new thing that people are talking about in the US, right? It's called Web Runner. And so he pointed me to the Java website, right? It was already called Java. He called Web Runner, but it was already called Java. There's a new name. And so I saw this internal site about this Java thing, and I was just kind of looking around, right? And so by the end of that week, John Gage made his first demonstration of Java in the world, right? And so about 2 or 3 months after that, my boss comes into the room and said, hey guys, there's some reporter asking about something called Java. He says that's something that Sun does. Does anyone know anything about that? And I'm like, I know. So my boss said, okay, so come with me. And so I go, and so that's when the Java Man was born, right? So and I know exactly that if at that particular moment my dad had all the power, he could just say, Bruno, if you go back to working, I'm not going to pay your stay in São Paulo anymore. You're on your own, right? And I would have to say, well, I can't do that. I need your help, Dad, right? But he didn't even force me to say I need your help, right? He just helping me, although he was totally against. So if my dad had not done what he did at that particular day, the Java Man would not exist, right? Because it was the perfect time, the perfect day. And so I always remember that, right? Absolutely every time that I think about, and especially today, right? I really remember that. And more important than that, right? That's, what we are doing here. And I really appreciate what the work you guys are doing here, because I see that what you guys are doing as a continuation of this process, right? You are here, you are taking time off your family. You're taking time off in your day. You're taking time off your day off. You're taking time off your holiday. And not you not the four of us here, the three of you guys here, but also everyone that's watching us. You guys are taking time to do what's right, to move your career forward, to do something for others, right? So I really appreciate all these. And if you guys can remember that every time you come up here and you put in your personal time to help others grow, you might not be thinking about this, but I'm thinking, thank you guys for honoring my father. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate everything that you guys do. I think that this group here has been such an amazing part of my life for the last more than a year now, and I really enjoy being here with you guys. And so thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno.
Thanks, Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno, for your touching words. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to let you talk about the cool thing about open source and artificial intelligence, because I'm going to go back, right? So this guy, his daughter is my goddaughter, or I'm the godfather of his daughter, right? Luis is the guy that made the phone call, right? Many years ago, he's the guy that got me to know Sun and all that. So I think it's all fitting it's a very fitting day. All right.
Yeah, sounds right. Thank you for the keynote. Thank you for the keynote, Bruno.
No
we
problem.
needed that to kickstart our session.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Sorry for just kind of barging in and stopping everything, but I think that was a great.
Actually, it really helped us because some process that Hugo is running definitely needed the extra time, and by now it's probably up and running, because that'll be following on after I show what I'm going to be showing now. So it's all working out well in our favor, because we needed the time, we got the time, and the time was filled in with some really insightful and inspiring words.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. See you then.
Take care.
See you later,
Bruno. Thanks for popping in.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. So,
cool. Just one word. I want to give a shout out to the people in the chat here. Mateus Cruz, Alessandro Ferreira, Douglas. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here.
For joining us, yes. And of course, we want to share our project, but more than that, we want to hear the challenge that you're going through with open source. That's the all meaning with this session. And just to kickstart here, let's talk a little bit more about what we have here. It's an AI project created by Money. Hey, Money, I will share your screen now. And
yeah, thank you.
Can we go introducing a quick introduction over this project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll give you a little bit of a background of how this started. I was doing a Facebook hackathon in 2019. I think at about that time, just way before the pandemic was kicking in. It was around November, December time. And one of the things we were working on was to interface with the Facebook Messenger app, which works on both the mobile and the desktop and in the other interfaces. And so from that, in that hackathon, we actually created something that actually would take an input from the user and feed it to a model, a machine learning model, which was actually responding back. And so, but that was just a one-way communication or two-way communication, right? It was human talking to the chatbot, and the chatbot was returning a response. So from that, I got this idea that what if we could have not just a human talking to a chatbot, but their chatbots talking to each other. And that's what from where this project was born. I mean, the other project I can also show, but maybe towards the end, I will show you what the other project was. But then this project came about. And so you can see from the description here, it's a demo application of 2 or more chatbots can talk to each other. The logic used to build ELIZA, along with the NLP model, has been used to power the chatbots. But that's not true. We, in addition to ELIZA, we also used other models. So which you can see further here, if you are all able to see my screen. Let me know if this is not visible. So these are all the badges I've added to it. So it's an Apache license project. We've used Java 8 and Java 11, actually, and it's also powered by Graal VM, because each of the chatbots, I mean, the whole chatbot runs in a container, which is actually powered by Graal VM. And then we are using projects or frameworks like Halidin, Quarkus. The NLP-based chatbot is powered by something called Roberto, which runs on Python, and internally also uses Flask to talk to the outside world, because it wraps the model with an API. And you can see over here, actually the models are powered by the AI models that are powered by ELIZA and Roberta. So ELIZA is powering the Java-based models, and the Python-based model is powered by Roberto. But it's a very open architecture. So just because we did it this way, it doesn't mean that those are the only technologies you can use. In fact, the way it has been designed, it's very open. The central server is a Java-based server, but it could be written in Python or any other language, as long as it follows the REST protocol. And then the bots, we call them chatbots, that connect to the central server, are also written in, it can be written in various languages. So there's a couple of them written in Java, which are ELIZA based, and then there's one written in Python, that's the Roberta. But they all talk to each other with the REST protocol, which means that it's language agnostic. You could write another chatbot in another different language as long as it exposes a REST endpoint and it can talk to the server using REST. It's in business. There is no need for any language translation, or having to write in Java or Python or any other language that we have used here. So this is kind of the idea. What the idea is, a central server connects all the different clients to it, and the clients are sending messages to each other, and they're getting messages from each other, and using the messages it gets from the other clients, it prepares a message and responds the message back. We won't go into the details of how and what it's doing. And also, we tried to make it very easy. Initially, when I started the project, there was a lot of complications on different things. Hugo did a great job in helping me reduce it into these 3 steps. You can see over here: clone repository, run Docker container. So clone repository is very simple. Git command, git clone the name, the URL of the repository. Then you go into the folder and then you run the Docker command, which is a shell script, and that's it. And then it starts running. And so Hugo will do the job just after, as soon as I finish, of showing us how the chatbots run and how they communicate with each other. But before I do that, let me also walk you through some other components on the repository. I also put a link of my presentation that I did some time back, and in fact, Hugo and I did also another presentation that's also pasted here. And this is like a screenshot, if you can see now. I hope everybody's able to see this. You guys are able to see this as well, Pedro, Hugo?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is what I did is I created 3 panels on my console, and on each panel I ran each of the so what happens is, when the chatbots are talking to each other, you can see logs for each of the bots, and you can actually print those logs in your console. And this is what I was doing. So these are the 3 panels of the 3 different bots that are talking to each other, and you can see what each bot is sending as a message to the other. So that's one thing. And the other one is, you have a main console where you can see all of the bots talking to each other, right? So this is where what Hugo is going to show you. We are not going to show you each bot. You can do this on your own, but you can see on Hugo's console, when he shows it, there are bots talking to each other, right? And this is the newer output of how Roberta is talking to the other side, and so on and so forth. So the idea here is to show many different things, right? The idea is to show how you can do an open architecture, how you can do collaboration using simple tools, how you can collaborate over time zones, because Hugo and I are on very different time zones, right? We've got 5 to 6 hours difference depending on whether it's daylight saving or not. And also, we have busy lives ourselves, and we have different expertise. Like, I have expertise in certain things. Hugo knows them, but doesn't have that much experience in, and vice versa. Like, Hugo has done this great work on WebSockets, which we won't show this time, but we will show in another time, which is an extension on top of the current work that we've already done. And all of this works in a Docker container. So you don't need to install anything on your computer other than Docker, which is very easy to install in today's time on any operating system that you can get your hands on, or the most of the popular operating systems that you can get your hands on. I cannot talk about all the operating systems out there. And so all you need is a Docker container, a Git installed on your local client, and cloning the repository and running the Docker container, and you can see an output like this showing up on your screen. Something like that showing up on your screen. Of course, these screenshots are slightly dated. The new screenshots, the new output that you'll see on Hugo's console is the most recent output that you want to see. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Hugo. And even before Hugo starts any demo, if there are any questions, please ask us. I'll be more than happy to talk about anything that I haven't covered. Or Hugo or Pedro, we can all answer your questions. And so that we don't just show your demo, and if you have any questions, we miss them out. So just to also give you a snapshot, is the reason we are having this session. It's a very different session, or a little bit different session than all the sessions we've been having so far, is we want to bring in a little bit of hands-on practical touch to what we've been doing. If you've seen all the 16 to 18 sessions that we've done over a year's period, most of them have been some presentation, a lot of discussions, a lot of answering of questions and answers. And in a couple of sessions that Pedro ran, we did some hands-on coding, but we want to do more of that because we want to pass on those experiences that Hugo, myself, Pedro, and Bruno have that are more practical to the rest of the audience. So this was like a very practical idea that we wanted to show to all of you. And we're only showing very basic stuff at the moment. If there's more questions and demand and requests, we will go deeper into it. But maybe this session and maybe another one, if there are some pending questions, we want to show all the hands-on and technical and practical aspects of what we've been doing. So our sessions are not all about answering questions only and theory. There's also an element of practicality in them. So yeah, if there are any questions coming in from the audience about the project, if they haven't understood something or they have questions about it, I think, Hugo, I think it'll be a great idea to also share the link with the rest of the audience, so they can actually go on there whilst you're going to be showing them stuff.
Yeah, good idea. And I think Pedro has a question. Go ahead, Pedro, while we share
perfect.
here the link.
Yeah, I have a question. While we're waiting here for questions from the audience as well, when you talk about that the chatbot is talking to each other through a REST API, you mean that this project creates like a basis for a conversation between chatbots that has the same REST API interface. That's what I mean. You created a REST API interface, and they know how to talk to each other, and then we can implement any chatbot here using this interface. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. So the only thing is, so the server has a IP address and a port. Actually, the IP address is localhost and the port number, and the clients also have a port, and the server and the clients talk to the server at a port and sends a message. The server receives the message, and it knows the port numbers of all the other bots. So it knows the URL address, the IP addresses of the other bots. They're also running on the same server except on a different port. Mm-hmm. And then those messages get sent to those different ports accordingly. And then they are also receiving the message from the server. They're processing it, and they're actually sending the message again back to the server for it to be broadcasted onto the different other bots out there. So it's a very complicated cyclical process, and it happens in a cycle. Oh, okay. So you can have many bots come in and leave, and they'll still work.
Interesting. So
we haven't done that part.
You implemented like a room, a chat room.
In a sense, yeah. In a sense, yeah. We haven't implemented the part where they're logging out. Just now, it's like if they're logged in, they stay logged in forever. But in future, we will make it like human-like, where you log in and you log out, and they keep coming, and the questions just, yeah. There are also some other drawbacks to it, which Hugo and I have been working on. Is we need to implement a queue system. We haven't done that. Just now, it's a bit random, and it can happen that some messages are getting lost. It's because the queue system is not proper. Because there was a demo project that I created. What we really want to do is build a queue, and what we want to do is every bot drops a message in the queue and tells the server which other bot this message is meant for, and it forgets about it. And the server does the job of taking the message like a postman and drops it in the other bot or bots queues, and so on and so forth. We haven't done that. Once we implement that, there'll be no loss of messages, and it'll be a lot more systematic. And it'll be and now what Hugo did was also a great job. He created this interface where we get rid of the queue system and use WebSockets. So with that, what happens is you can actually have people. You don't have to write a bot like how we've written. We can connect to it through other ways, and we can also have we can also implement this through the browser. So we haven't got to that part yet. We want to first do one step at a time. We want to fix the queue system, get it working, and then we'll implement the WebSocket system. And we can actually have both the queue system and the WebSocket system work together. The chatbot that connects can tell whether I want to connect with the queue system, a REST API, or WebSocket. Yeah, if you're using REST API, it'll be the queue system. If you're using WebSocket, it'll be WebSocket and queue system. So we haven't got there yet. It's still work in progress. As you can see, we've not been fully busy doing this. So yeah, hopefully this gives enough time for our processes to kickstart, and you go saying, yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I think this brings one of the first tools that we have been experimenting last in this repository, that is the Terraform, or the infrastructure as code, and that was very helpful. Once we got these scripts working here on the project, things start to okay. I will just run the apply this script, and it will instantiate things on my account of the. Now we are using Oracle Cloud, because Oracle gives us 4 VMs for free on lifetime. So it's very useful to do such kind of experiment, not just experiment. If you want to go to production with that, works well. And yeah, that was one of things that I would like to share with you guys. And I think before going to the examples, I'm sure that when we mention chatbot, someone there that is watching us are asking, "Oh, it just already integrates with the ChatGPT." And yeah, we would like to get that. And if you would like to work in that chatbot, it will be awesome, because we have 2 examples, Roberta and Eliza chatbot here. Would be awesome to get ChatGPT, because it will start giving more, I think, sophisticated conversation inside this environment. Yeah, I don't know if you could follow, but it's to have lots of chatbots talking with each other. That's really fun. With Eliza and Roberta, they are very it's very simple conversation, but but in ChatGPT will become something very crazy. Maybe, I don't know. I have to see it working to tell you what would be the result. So without taking so much time, let me share here. I just run here on my machine. I have this version running here. It is running on our. Let me change a little bit here the display of the screen. Maybe it's easier this way. Good. So here it's already running on the Oracle Cloud machine that we instantiated. So started the Quarkus, and started to send the message to Helidon. So Quarkus sent hello to Helidon. And just to mention here, I'm today, since we are talking about open source, I'm wearing here the Quarkus T-shirt, because I've contributed on the Quarkus repository, and we are using Quarkus here. So that's awesome coincidence. Many mentioned it today, and I forgot. Oh yeah, we are using Quarkus here too. So that's a great opportunity to use. Not bad. There's no better time to use such T-shirt here today. And yeah, when we start with this with the project, we're gonna start having. We're gonna see the application starting, and we have a script that help us to actually access the remote server and start the whole process. And then we're gonna take all the console logs from this application. So we're gonna see all the three application starts running and connect to the chat room that we have here, the central part that will manage the chat, the whole chat. We're going to start seeing all the message going through. So sometimes you will see this unable to connect because they were not available at that time. Then when it's okay, it will start to send you the messages. Let me see. We're going to have some chats here going on, and they are already, let's see here.
Hugo, do you mind exiting this session and starting that last command again? In fact, you can also show the 3 different commands you run before to get started. Because
okay.
Yeah, so if you do Control C, it'll take you out of this session. I think you might. Yeah, you are. Yeah, perfect. So now, if you run the first, if you run the Terraform command, not this one, the one before that, because it's 3 command. Yeah, if you run, so this is how you would get started. So what will happen is it'll not rerun it. It'll just give you the instance you're running. So if you press enter, it'll tell you that you already are running, and it'll give you the IP addresses. Yeah, so this is actually, so what Hugo just did is the very quick shortcut of what he would have run the very first time to get the cloud instance started. But because the cloud instance infrastructure is already being created, he didn't need to wait. It just told him that these are the IP addresses of the places where where you can connect to get access to the instance. And so the next command that Hugo runs, so there's one more command he can run to find out, in case he didn't know what the IP addresses were. There's one more command he could run. So Hugo, there is a command called get IP address. You can do ls and find out. If you do ls, yeah, so there's the other command, get instance. Yeah, so if you just do /get and tab, no, yeah, get get and tab, perfect, and press enter. So in case you didn't missed out that screen, or if you as a user missed out the screen, there's a script that already tells us what the public IP is that you could use to connect to the instance where the service is running. But we made it even easier so that you don't have to remember all the commands. There's another script that says, okay, the infrastructure is in place, now run the chatbot. So then you just click that command, type that command. So what will happen is now the infrastructure is ready, and the infrastructure will be told, please go and start the chatbot server. And so you will now see a whole number of things running up and kicking off the service. Yeah.
This script runs all the Docker containers.
Yeah. So what it'll do is it'll download the Docker image, and it'll start running the Docker container image, and a Docker container will start inside the virtual machine that is running in the cloud. And just like you would run on your local machine, because you see the screen I showed you earlier, where I said there are only 3 steps to run that, right? We are doing the exactly same thing in the cloud instance. We are cloning the repository, and we are saying run the Docker container. But because it's a cloud instance, we needed to create the VM, download the image, and then it would run the container for us. And so this is what earlier was static screens. This is what's happening when the conversations are starting. And Roberto, the Roberto model needs to download the model, which is 1 gigabyte actually in size. And it actually might be growing, because this was 1 gigabyte last year. I'm sure it must have grown more than that. And so that's why when you say unable to connect, if you see those messages, it means that chatbot is not ready yet to answer questions. It is still downloading the model, so it is unable to connect. But once it's ready, then it starts responding. So if you see, there is some note here that says that Roberto will either repeat the same messages of the other world, or it will change a word or two in the sentence and reply back. Rarely will the sentence will be different when it sends it out. In the process, a new sentence may be produced. Sometimes erroneous ones are also there, so watch out. And so that's kind of the starting introduction of Roberta. But Roberta is the smarter model of the two. If you see Eliza is using smart if-then sentences to take your messages and turn it around and send it back to you. Because Roberto is actually using a natural language processing model to take your sentences, it'll put a question mark next to it. It drops a word or two, and it creates a conversation from that and responds back.
What is the other word in this case here?
The other world means if you're Roberta, then anybody else is your other world. So it could be Halidin, it could be Quarkus, it could be I don't remember what are the other. Yeah, I think it's Micronaut. So that's the other world. So it's from the subject of the where you are.
So the other word is, in this case, as you're seeing here in the screen, we have other word in red.
Yeah. So if
Who
you
is the other word in this case?
yeah, so in this case, the other world is Quarkus.
And
See, Quarkus
and
is
because
asking
it's
Heliden.
red,
Yeah, Quarkus is asking Heliden, "You're not really talking about me, are you?" And Heliden is
And
responding, "You have something to say to me. You have something interesting to say."
okay.
it
And then
is.
Helidon became the other word to Quarkus, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then
Exactly.
Quarkus returns. We were discussing you, not me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you haven't. Roberta hasn't joined the conversation yet because, as I was saying, Roberta model is 1 GB. It takes a bit. So in that time, so now Roberta has joined the conversation. Roberta says, "Ask Quarkus, how are things?" Right. So now
Oh no,
Roberta
this.
is the smarter one.
Ah
So
yes,
Roberta can
very fair.
create.
Mhm.
Roberta can create better sentences. Hopefully.
And Alberto sent to Quarkus our things, and then Quarkus is answering, "What is it you really wanted to know?" And then we can expect Roberta receiving what is
Yeah.
really wanted to know as other word.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, see, now Roberta is getting ready. From what I'm seeing, yeah, the Quarkus, the PyTorch model is getting loaded up.
Oh,
So if you give it a few
something
seconds,
happened.
Roberta is going to now respond. So you see model loaded, evaluated. So these are all log messages I left in the chat so that we know what's going on. Otherwise, it's a little bit of a black box.
But we are seeing here the main container, the like the room container,
Yeah.
and we have other containers. Each of the searchbots are a different container running, right?
So I think we have made them run. If I remember right, they're all running inside one container now. I have to check to see if we have planning to
Yeah,
do
it
them as
is.
separate containers. Yeah, they're all running
We
in one
haven't
container. Yeah.
we haven't yet doing the separation work here. Would be better because it will be easier to manage it. But for simplest purpose here to get something working, we got everything inside one container only.
Just different
Currently,
process.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all different processes running. Yeah. We also wanted to keep it separate. We wanted to first make sure that everything works together in one container before we separate it out, because then what happens is once you start separating out, then the complexity also needs to be managed, right? Because then there'll be separate containers that need to be managed at the container level, and then also the communication needs to also be there. Like for example, each container will have its own IP address or own port number, and they need to be exposed. There are small bits of management to be done. Usually it's automatic with the Docker Compose configuration file, but we wanted to take it one step at a time because there's quite a few moving parts here, right? We need to do the queue management. Then we needed to make sure that they are language agnostic and easy to start, because now if you have 3 different containers, 4 different containers, you have different images that'll get downloaded as well. So that'll increase the startup time and the load time. You
For
see,
sure.
if you have one image, then the load time and startup time is quicker.
Agree.
Yeah. So, and also, when we start creating separate containers, we would need to probably inherit the images and have a base image and inherit from that and have child images. So we'll have to think about that as well. So there's a lot of stuff, and that's exactly why the project was also started, to demonstrate many different things, right? Because you also saw each chatbot is written with a different framework. One is using Heliden, one is using Quarkus. There's plans to use Micronaut, and we're already using Roberta, which runs on Flask, right? Which is a Python environment. So if there's another new framework out there, like I think Fast API is a Python-based framework, we could use that as well.
Right. But how do you say, oh, you're using Quarkus or Helidon? But the Quarkus, the Quarkus is only implementing the REST API you said. So inside the Quarkus, you are using an NLP framework to handle the conversation, right?
Yeah, if you look at the source code, we have this ELIZA source code that is a Java-based single file, which is used by both Halidin and Quarkus.
Got it.
Yeah, so that is the model, but then they're both that same source file is behaving differently in the two different frameworks because there's a randomization introduced in ELIZA. Every time you run, it'll behave slightly differently. Also depends on what you ask ELIZA. ELIZA will turn those sentences around and ask you back, right? So if you give it any sentence, it'll always give you a different sentence back. And if you then give it that sentence back again, it'll turn that again into another sentence. So it keeps doing that, right? So you always get like a randomized format. Okay, it looks like Roberta is back in business. You can see we have a confidence score also in brackets to whatever Roberta is saying to kind of say that does Roberta fully understand what it's saying? The confidence level is 4%, 4.95%. So
So I think Money mentioned many technologies here, and that's the very interesting thing about this project. At least for me, it was to get in touch with AI thing about the models that is running behind each of these chatbots. Also, the architecture. I experimented at least with Quarkus and Helidon. Also, it was the first time that I had my hands on, so that was very interesting. Flask and Python also, it was. So I haven't went too much with Flask and Python, I think, and yeah, that was very interesting to contribute in all these different technologies. I also tried to introduce the WebSocket. It is in progress task, but all these things that all these ways that we have to introduce here to implement things here was very interesting. And for you, if you are looking for some project to get it started, that's a great project to do that. If you want to get started with AI, creating your own chatbot, or just integrate with a ChatGPT API, would be amazing here to implement one thing here, deploy on this environment, and see how ChatGPT works against other chatbots, implementing other models. And if you want to go through some different technologies like web frameworks like Quarkus, Leiden, on any other one, you can also do that. And it's only two very simple APIs, HTTP requests here, REST APIs, and also so it's very easy to integrate. And then anything that you think about improving it will be very welcome.
Can you show a little about the code, for example, for Quarkus one?
yeah,
As you are with a Quarkus t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have another request. Also, can you, after you've shown Quarkus, can you also show the ELIZA code? Because that will show the audience what a model is, what an AI model is. Because I also have a link to a presentation that I did on my first or second out of the box session nearly 13 months ago, where I actually was talking about an AI model, but I only was explaining in words. But once you will show us the code, I will show the presentation, and then people can see the presentation and the ELIZA code. So then you can map the two concepts and understand it.
I would ask if you can increase the font size.
Increase the font size, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
And maybe collapse the left panel.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think it's over. I think if you click on the dots, it'll allow you to collapse the. Is that right?
No, it's better to use.
Yeah, perfect. There you go.
So where will this start? Showing here. What?
If you go into the folder structure, I think there's one for Quarkus.
Quarkus World.
Yeah, Quarkus World. And if you go into source, SRC, main, Java, not Docker.
ELIZA.
Not the ELIZA. You want to show the Caucus code, right? The one that receives the REST
Oh yeah,
endpoint
you're
request.
right.
So I think it's the message resource
messaging
file.
resources. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something in config, but maybe there's not much in config. Config.java. So that's all that there is. We're using for Caucus. You using annotations. You define an endpoint, and the endpoint takes in one parameter, which is the message content, and that's it.
And to return is just a plain text, like the response on
Yep.
that.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
So when it gets the plain text, it sends it to this function called ELIZA, this class called ELIZA dot, and with the function ask, and passes the message content. And whatever it gets back, it sends it back to the caller. That's it.
All right.
Very straightforward, right?
Very straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hence,
this is the implementation of one chatbot.
yeah,
Exactly.
and it's the same principle for the other chatbots as well. You get a response, you send a response back. You can open up config.java to let everybody see what's in there. So config.java has got, that is the ELIZA's config. It's got all the keywords, right? Like for example, don't is don't, cannot, there's just those mappings that ELIZA needs to know what a machine is. It's a computer. And then there are some other ones, pronoun ones, like are, your, my, because ELIZA uses your word to swap for its own sentence, and this is what it uses as a map. Yeah. And so if it doesn't have any response, or it cannot find anything, it'll say, please go on. So you get to write more stuff, and then when it catches on your sentence, it'll use the please go on, right? So these are all the small gotchas that we had to build in. And it also does random sentences, like the random sentences could be a list of any of these. No match, I rather hear from you first. And you can keep adding more sentences that are very generic, that sound like an intelligent conversation, but actually it's just random stuff. So that's what get random message does. And if you go to the actual model code, which you were showing earlier, you go the ELIZA.java file, you will see. So we know the computer name is Quarkus, right? So that's the username, because in this Quarkus, the ELIZA implemented it as a Quarkus ELIZA. It's the same code, actually. It's no different in the other ones. And then, yeah, if you see, the ask function receives it, and it has some introduction. And after that, it does all this. Depending on what it receives, it'll say goodbye. It doesn't. We don't have a situation of goodbye. And then it just goes and processing your sentences. So there's a prepare response. So it'll take your response. We go to the prepare response function. Actually, Hugo, can you collapse the left panel? Because then you get to see. Yeah. So if you go to the prepare response, and there's a lot of comments written in here. I must say I have not written all of the code at all. I've taken most of the code, refactored it, and I've tweaked it so that it comes up with random sentences and does not repeat itself. There are there were a number of issues. I had to fix those issues using like these quirks that make it look like it's a smart conversation and smart response, but actually it's all hand waving things that we had to do here. So it looks simple, but this is the model. The model is nothing but a whole set of if then else functions and checking for this and checking for that and responding with something smart, looking for words that it recognizes. If it doesn't recognize a word, then you give it a standard response like please go on. Something like that. I did not follow you, can you repeat yourself please? And things like that. Yeah. So it doesn't look like it doesn't know what it's doing, but it like pretends to get its way around. Yeah. So same thing with the Haliden world as well. If you now go to Haliden world and look at how Haliden has been implemented, and if you look at the Java, and the same thing, the config and ELIZA are for ELIZA, but Haliden has a little bit more implementation. And you see the color coding that's happening in the console is because I'm using ANSI color codes when I'm printing on the console. So you see yeah. So that does not come from anywhere, but it's my implementation. And then Haliden's implementation of endpoint, you can see in main.java, I think, if I remember right. Or greet service. Sorry, greet service. Yeah, so that's where you define your API calls in that fashion. Those are the rules. And then in there, you see when a response comes in. If you search for Eliza here, you will see the right function call that is using. Okay, so it's not here.
I think it's not in here.
Yeah, it's not here. Sorry, it's in the message service then.
Yeah, it's here.
Get message. Yes, it's get message. Yeah, it's get message. It's been quite some time, so I've forgotten how I've done that. Yeah, the gets message, same thing. If you see the principle, if you go up, the rule is defined that if you do a slash and you put a message to Haliden, it'll just translate that as a call, and it'll receive the information from the URL, and it'll pass it on to Eliza.ask. Eliza.ask does the same thing it does in Haliden that it did in Quarkus.
Got it.
Yeah. So all you need to do is create the infrastructure for your framework to be able to receive a message using REST endpoint and send a message using REST endpoint. The remaining steps, you can just do a copy paste of this function and replace a few bits. It'll work.
Understood.
Yeah. It still is not very generic, but it's very close. If you had to really do object-oriented and make it generic, then you would do some more things. You would inherit a class or an interface that implements it in a certain way. We didn't go that far because we wanted to make it work first. Because once you have it working, then you can refactor it to fit design, right? But first, let's get it working. I mean, there's so many things here, right? As Hugo was mentioning, there's Terraform, there's Docker. Then within Docker, you can run any platform you want, right? Java or Python. And then you expose all of this using REST endpoints. So communication happens in a language agnostic fashion. And they are wrapped by Docker containers.
And so I think let's discuss a little bit about these tools that we have been using here. At least I think Docker container was one of the main tool that we have been using here that helps us run the whole environment without having much problems with the machines, because here in this session actually we see that Money uses Linux operating system. I use MacBook here, so Mac OS, and Pedro using Windows operating system. So to make all those working well in each of environment would be a hell in the earth. So that was very helpful. So, but wherever you start some open source project, having an containerized environment is very, very helpful to others to contribute, because they can run on their environments and they won't suffer by configuring their whole system to be able to run your project. So that was very useful for us here. And what do you think about it, Mani, Pedro?
Well, you know what I was gonna suggest. Since we all three have different operating systems, and you've already shown the implementation on your notebook, on your MacBook, but also you've run this on the Oracle Cloud system, which runs the Linux platform. So we've already demonstrated it runs on Linux. I was going to request Pedro to see if he can do a git clone and do run Docker from his command line on Windows. You might have to run it in git bash if you have git bash. And you let us see if it runs the whole thing in the Docker container inside your Windows machine, and it gives us the same output as Hugo has just shown us. And maybe you can do this in the background, and once it's working, maybe you can screen share with us. I think that's one suggestion I've had. And in the meanwhile, we can talk about other things while Pedro's system is setting up. And if it doesn't run this time, we can show this another time. But at least we can demonstrate that it's operating system agnostic, not just language agnostic, operating system agnostic as well, and not just local machine. It runs on the cloud anyways, which you already demonstrated, right, Hugo?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have a Git bash here. I have a Ubuntu in double SL2 here.
Okay. All right.
With those.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, you could
what
do
do
a
you
Git.
think is better?
You could do. I would suggest do a Git bash, because that's a little bit more native in the Windows world. Because if you run the Ubuntu, then it is as good as running an operating system, another operating system, right?
Oh, but he
Yeah.
needs to run on WSL to run Docker containers. So yeah.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I don't have Docker
Okay, you
desktop.
don't.
You
Well,
don't have Docker.
maybe we could do this for another time, where you have
Mhm.
your WSL install and Docker install, and then run it. It shouldn't take too long,
Yeah.
because I've done this on a Windows machine long time ago. But let's not do that for this time. But the
Mhm.
idea
Yeah.
is, if you had Docker
In my
working and Docker is operating system agnostic, you can
uh-huh.
have it running in there as well.
I have a Docker working in the double cell environment.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think one other thing that was that helped us a lot, at least in the last moment, it was the last thing that we added here. Actually, Money added here and helped me a lot to instantiate things on my Oracle Cloud account. And I just mentioned before, it's a Terraform. It was very interesting to see how he instantiates things on your account on when we connect to Oracle Cloud. It's really straightforward. Uh, Not so straightforward to create the script. I think this is an interesting thing to Money maybe share the templates that we used from the Terraforms that already give us a playbook on how to create things on Oracle Cloud, and you don't have to start from scratch because, yeah, of course, you have to configure a lot of things, not just the VM, but the network, the virtual network, and all of the stuff to be ready to run. So that's just to have an idea here for this simple infrastructure. We have quite a lot of things here of resources that we have to instantiate to give you some idea about how it works, how is it done on using Terraform. So that's almost 200 lines of code of configuration here that you have to go through. And one interesting thing is that since we are in different regions and we are talking about cloud, and cloud also manages their virtual machines in different regions. And me and Money, we are in different countries, right? Money is in London, and I am in São Paulo, Brazil, and we got we got to end up having issues with the region. For specific region, we have to specify some images of Oracle Cloud, and in other ones we have to specify others. So when Money created the script, it does include the São Paulo region, of course, and we just got into this when I tried to instantiate things on my account, and I can't create actually in my free tier. I can't create actually instances on neither of these other options. So I had to add here specifically for São Paulo region. That was interesting thing that you have to be aware of, and when you're running it in multiple places and free tier. And yeah, what else Money we have to share here that would be interesting for our audience?
So I
It's
think you
working on my
can.
machine.
What's that?
Yeah.
Say that again, Pedro.
The chatbot is working on my machine.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
really?
why don't I finish Hugo's question, and then you do a quick screen share? That'll be interesting. So we just got it working. That's amazing. So Hugo, that's a great one. I am thinking it's safe for us to show the credentials RC underscore template, because
Yes.
that's the one that is subjective to each person's machine, right? Because the other files are commonly shared across all parties, but the credential.rc template file is specific to each person, and it's not added to the. Yes, you can show this very safely, because you don't have any specific things in here. And so this is the file that you'll need to export or like load up in your environment before you start running Terraform. And these contain Terraform variable values. So things like tenancy ID, compartment ID, user ID, the location to your private key, the region in which you are. For example, in Hugo's case, that value would be replaced by Brazil, Sao Paulo, or whatever the code is.
Yeah.
And also the location to the public key on his local machine and things like that. So this is the file that is the differentiator between every user, depending on what region they're from and where they're from. And now that, and Hugo had to make some changes in the code, help me make some changes in the code as well, so that it's now more generic than it was when I did the pull request. And so when we merge the pull request, which I think it's fairly safe to now merge the pull request, right, Hugo? I think. Yep. I'm confident because you already have it running, and I don't think we need to worry about anything else, right? So what I'm going to do is, now Hugo has nicely created this pull request. I am going to just merge the pull request because I understand that.
Can you share the screen maybe?
I will be sharing the screen in 1 second. That's a good one.
Okay.
It was what I was intending to do. So while Pedro is getting ready to show his Windows implementation, I'm going to show you how we do collaboration over different time zones via GitHub, right? So this is the pull request. You guys have been working for the last 4-5 months, and I'm going to say, looks good to me. We have tested it online, live, and it works. Right?
That's an introduction.
what better could it be than us demoing this live and it working, right? So, and if there are any small niggles, we can always create another pull request and do the job, right? So basically, if you see, Hugo's pull request was on top of my branch, which was also pull request to master. So what has happened is now Hugo's work is now being merged into my work. So now let's go and see there are 2 pull requests. And so this is the pull request. That's not the one. This is the pull request I was working on a year ago. It says May 8, 2022, which is not more than 6 days away from 1 year. And into that has come in Hugo's pull request, right? So you can see all of these commits from Hugo. They have now all come in here. So I'm going to refresh that. Great. And so I think that we can very comfortably merge this in, again with the same pretext that in case there are issues, we can fix it as it comes. Not necessarily this is how you should do it in a project, but because we've tested this so many times already, and we know, we have also worked, some of you may not know that we have actually had a lot of online sessions where Hugo and I would share the screen. I would walk him through what code changes he needs to make, where he needs to put comments, and he's done all of that. We may need to expand on a few things here and there, but those are just side actions, right? So when you're doing open source pull request code reviews like that across time zones, and when 2 people are very busy, we don't need to go to the real grunt work that we would do normally at a workplace, where we would actually make sure all the things are in place. Firstly, none of this is production ready. There's no client waiting for this. And big disclaimers, do not run this anywhere. It's a toy project. So we don't see much consequences to it. If at all there are some failures in a Terraform step or a Docker step or a local machine step. But the big disclaimer is, use any of these things at your own discretion. We have been running it on our machine. So far, nothing has happened. Doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you. But keeping all of that in mind, it's an open source project. You can find problems in it, raise requests, fix them, and help us fix them, and we'll merge here. This is exactly how we would be working. If it works, and we have demonstrated to each other that it works, we don't have to go through the great details of seeing that every step of it works. And also, Pedro can now run it on his Windows machine, right? So I've already merged this. and we will do another test after this session is finished, and then we will create issues or create more pull requests if at all that's necessary. I don't think it may be necessary, but Pedro is going to do the real other test of testing it across into other operating system. So why don't I hand it over to you, Pedro? I'm going to stop screen sharing. Unless Hugo, do you want to add anything to this that I might have missed out, or
No,
any other
that was
comments you want to add?
no. Maybe if you are unfamiliar with GitHub, it's the platform where we do create open source projects, and I believe that it's the biggest platform that you can find in the world. And yeah, that's good to show all these steps for creating a pull request and merging it. If you are starting with open source and have more questions, you can also bring here. And a great person that, if you are interested on the open source topic, there's a friend of mine that calls Nikita Kozlev. He's always sharing and helping people to get into the open source world. But we can also here be helping you if it is one of challenge that you are having too. Okay, and here this is a great project to start with. To if you have any questions about it.
So one more thing
And
I wanted to
yeah.
say that if you look at the history of this project since last year, Hugo has spent a lot of time, his free time, trying to improvise the project. Like if you see the README page and you go to the first commit where I created the README page, the first 10 commits or first 100 commits, the README page looked very different. It didn't look as simple and nice and comprehensive and yet easy to read and understand. So I say kudos to Hugo. And this is how we develop in open source, right? Everybody comes up with the ideas. So Hugo didn't know about badges, and I showed him about badges, and he went on and created all the badges. And then I went and tweaked some of the badges to just adjust them in different places. So this is how we did our work on open source, where somebody does some work and somebody else does some work on top of that other person's work. So we're reusing and improvising everybody's steps there. So no work has gone wasted. At the same time, this whole page looks simple to read, simple to understand, and the project is much easier to use, because I had many steps previously to get this started. Then I told you, look, we need to get to the point where we have 1 or 2 steps, maximum 3 steps, and then everybody should be able to use it. And then he worked with me to improvise the Docker container, the shell scripts, the README page, and here what we have today is a much simplified version. And we are in 2 different time zones. We've got all our busy lives. This is not our day job. We have other day jobs, other responsibilities. And despite that, we've been able to do that because of what Hugo just mentioned. GitHub, collaboration tools, code reviews on GitHub, Terraform, Docker, and some things he knew, some things I knew, and we shared across each other. There were issues he had with SSH keys and other things connecting to Oracle Cloud. He resolved all of that. He looked at the shell scripts and he understood how to play with that and use that. And then we improved everything. And the project is a lot more generic now than it was previously. So the shell scripts are a lot more generic now. Now, any person can run this on any time zone and any. When I say time zone, is because it's also region specific, right? The cloud providers give you different regions, and in each region there are small nuances. So the project is now matured to now handle different regions, and I'm hoping that the next region, if there are any nuances, any issues, they'll be much easier to resolve than when we had to do between London and Sao Paulo. And we can now run this on other cloud providers as well. So we just did OCI as an example, but we can also do GCP, AWS, and another cloud provider. All you do is create another folder under deployment and follow the same principle as we did for OCI. And then there you go. So yeah, with that, I want to pass it on to Pedro. He's going to show us how the chat conversation works in his Windows platform. Can you show it to us from the beginning, Pedro, so that the viewers can see the 2-3 different steps you need to do before the chat starts? And I'm going to stop screen sharing so you can take over. We are not able to hear you unless you're on mute.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay.
It is already running. I can stop it here.
Yeah, if you can show us from like the beginning what you did. Okay, that's Git Bash. Great. So you went into the project, you cloned the project.
This is not Git Bash. This is the WSL, right?
Okay,
it's,
WSL.
Okay. Running in WSL. because I didn't have a Docker desktop to run Engage Bash, so it's running here inside my DevOps.
Okay,
And
that's even good.
I just clone it here. But
Mhm.
as you see, it was working. I will do a Git pull here because you just merged, right?
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Let's
Very
do
good.
that as we are trying everything. So
Hmm.
we get lots of the infrastructure stuff now.
Yeah.
And then I
So
just run
yeah,
it the Docker runner run
yeah.
container command that is shared in GitHub README, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Let's run it. See if it's still running.
Yeah. No, so the thing is, the changes the Hugo and I made were for cloud deployments only. So it did
Yeah,
not change anything in the local machine. Although it's using the
well,
same code, same script, and everything, it didn't change
uh-huh.
anything there. So you wouldn't see, and it shouldn't, in theory, it shouldn't. But if it still works, that means we haven't, uh,
See,
yeah,
it
the
looks like
changes
it's
Broken.
haven't
everything
really.
is okay.
Exactly. The changes, because that's a fear as well, right? You do something in the cloud deployment because they're sharing the same code, and you do something and it now doesn't work on the local machine, right? So,
Yeah, but it's everything is working correctly.
yeah. But the point here is also to show that you have a Windows machine and you were still able to do it. Of course, you had to run WSL, but you're now still able to use it. And you could also do it on using the Docker desktop, which runs on Windows, and using Git Bash. When you have that
Mhm,
ready, maybe we can demonstrate it next time. And that'll also show that even outside WSL, you'll be able to run this using the Docker container world.
mhm, for sure. Great.
Cool. Do we have any questions coming in from the audience? Because I think by now the audience must be excited about seeing all of the live. It's not hands-on coding, but quite a lot of demo that we've been showing, isn't it?
Yeah, but unfortunately, don't we don't have much.
Okay. Right. Well, it could be a good thing. No questions, meaning everybody's
Everybody
is
understood correctly.
exactly, and is glued into the demo. That is the demo is clear, and there has been no hiccups, as you saw. Everything worked fine. Bruno came in the right time, so Hugo could get the extra time to start up his session. And then when way before Bruno finished, Hugo's session was already kicking in. So yeah, it's all played in very well, I would say.
Great. Yeah,
Great.
I think we're also reaching here our time for today's sessions. So
Mhm.
just to keep our traditional moment also to share, it's a moment to share our books and how we are today. So let's see here. Do you guys have prepared the books for today's session?
I can share a book to start with. It's a book I have been reviewing for our community friend Uberto Barbini. I don't know if some of you know him from your end, but he's a thought leader at the London Java community, and he's a speaker at Devox, and he's written a book. I'm going to share that in the chat. Um, it's on pragmatic programmers. The book is called From Objects to Functions. So it's a great book where he's actually put his 20 to 25 years of experience into the book and covers all kinds of topics from object oriented programming to functional programming, and which covers things, and he implements a lot of this in Kotlin, and then he applies DDD, he's applying TDD, and all the concepts that you can think of in the world of software development, but at an intermediate to advanced stage. He's put all of that, and that is 20 years of. He's also worked with thought leaders in the industry, and he has put together some of the work experiences with them into the book as well. And yeah, and you can think of hexagonal architecture, you name it, it's there in the book. So I had the good fortune of reviewing some parts of his book. I was not able to review all of his book because of time constraints, and I have been able to review some part of his book. And I can say that I would say that every time I read through a bunch of chapters, and the comments were like, wow, this is actually reflecting some of the things I want to learn, or it already reflects some things I learned, and it's helping me refresh. And so I highly recommend It's mainly for intermediate to advanced level developers. I don't think a beginner would find it a fast read or a quick read, because there'll be some foundation that needs to be done for a beginner to understand the book. But anybody who's from the intermediate to advanced level should be able to read. And of course, you will need to do some foundational covering at different points, but it'll be comparatively less than for a beginner. And so I think most developers who are anywhere between intermediate to advanced level, who think they are in that level, should enjoy this book and learn from it. And there are lots of references in the book as well. So if you don't know a topic, there's a reference given how you can understand more about the topic. So it can be quite a long read in the sense, because you'll be creating foundations, but it's a worthwhile read.
Great, great. And you, Pedro, how about your book today?
Yeah, I'm sharing here, so please send to the next conversation. It's the DDD Quickly. It's the free book InfoQ has shared like some years ago about DDD, and it was my first book about DDD. I think it's has a good abstract of what DDD is, not only but not too abstract to the point we can't understand, right? But I think it has a good size balance between understanding and explaining all the concept of DDD, and I think it's a good book to start on DDD world if you hear about all this DDD concepts for in the wild. It's good to know and get a book that is has a good understanding about all the concepts. So yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah, I
Great,
think
great.
I'll plus one that, because DDD can be quite a dry and deep subject, and
Yeah.
to get the grasp of it, it's better to start with smaller chunks and simpler approaches to DDD, and then when you get a hang of it, and also you got to implement it to get really understand the concepts, because a lot of times we read stuff, we don't implement it, and that's why we don't understand it. So starting
Yeah.
something like this, DDD Quickly, is a great one. So thanks for sharing with us, Pedro.
Great. And well, from my side, I think it will be a classic one. It's from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because we are talking about open source, and it's all about contributing and connecting with other people. So that would be helpful if you want to make this a better way. That's a book that can give you good insights and yeah, make friends. So I think that with that we got in the end of this session then. So last words from you guys.
Well, let me start because I was just a guest today, and I got this lessons from you guys, and I thought it's amazing. The project is really interesting, and now we are getting a good timing to like, oh, it's open to put all the mainstream stuff like ChatGPT and everything. So now we have a good project to try out some programming with these things, not only using them like on the normal, how can I say, on the normal sites, you
Platforms.
know. Yeah, we can try out something using open source, using all this other stuff we are talking here, all the new frameworks, and trying something really really fun. So yeah, good job, guys.
Thanks, Bruno. I'm saying thanks, Pedro.
Sure. Not bro.
Well, I think it's a compliment to call you Bruno, right, Pedro? If
Completely,
imagine
yeah.
what it takes to become a Bruno.
Much to me, yeah.
But I will take that back. Thanks, Pedro, not Bruno. Okay. So actually, well spotted. So if you now actually look at it, a project like this helps you cover so many angles, right? Because we get so many questions, at least in the last 16 sessions. there'll be at least 10 sessions where people ask you, I want to do something, but I don't know how to start. Oh, I want to become good at this. I don't know where to do. Oh, I want to learn DevOps, but I want to still stay a Java developer. Oh, I am a Java developer, but I don't know any DevOps. And okay, I'm a Java developer. How do I advance in AI and data? And all these combinations of questions, right? So, and we have always stressed that the T structure, the T shape, isn't it? So now if you look at this project has got many elements of the T shape. I wouldn't say it has got everything, but has got many elements of the T shape. You name DevOps. Hugo has been doing DevOps on this for the last so many months. He has also introduced WebSockets, which is not DevOps, it's writing code, right? Like a typical Java developer or developer would write. So, but now he's going to integrate that with the rest of the framework. But then there's also some other DevOps projects involved in this, right? You'll have to break the chatbots into separate containers and then maybe have communicate. Now, also within each container, you can run any language you want, any framework you want. So then now you can choose Spring Boot, you can choose Quarkus, you can choose Micronaut, or any other framework that's out there and implement it. And you can do it separately without disturbing any other implementation because your end-to-end pipeline is in place, right? You have your Docker container, you have your Terraform implementation. None of those have anything to do with anything. They all work in isolation and they will all do their job. And now you can see how a project is implemented full swing from a Git commit all the way to the cloud. And not just that, you can see from our pull request from this video and other videos how Yoga and I have collaborated online, right? Which is also an element to know and understand in the whole software development lifecycle. As a developer, you're no longer a lone wolf. You're working in a team or at least in collaboration with another developer. In this case, the other developer was Hugo for me. And for Hugo, it was myself, right? So, and despite all the constraints of personal life, work, time zone differences, technology differences, Hugo has different core competencies. I have different core competencies. We had to align and understand and teach each other and help each other understand stuff, document stuff so that he understands. He documented stuff, so I know. So now I know how he fixed the sound polo issues and all that stuff, right? All of these small, minute things and bigger things make up a whole life cycle of collaboration, whether you work individually or work in a team or work across time zones. But this is how we work. Actually, you can't work individually anymore. You have to work with somebody else, right? Because none of these things are going to be working if some of these things that are built by another person is not clear for you. So yeah, I would say use this project as an example to start learning and collaborate with somebody, even if it's not us, collaborate with somebody using this project to improve this project or even make this project something different. But learn from this so that all the questions you've been asking in the last 16 to 20 sessions, that at least you get some answers from it using this project and using the video that you saw here and other resources that are on the GitHub repository. So that'll be my last words for it. And we if there are more burning questions, we are happy to do another session. If it's not the next time, the session after that, because there's a lot of value in us sharing practical stuff than only just talking theoretical stuff that we've been doing in the last so many sessions. Yeah, with that, I just want to put my words to rest, and I'll hand it over to Hugo. If you want to give your last words here, if anything else you want to add, or even say the same thing that I said is also fine.
Yes, I think I want to thank the audience for being here, and special thanks for Mani for being a mentor on this project, and grateful for sharing all his knowledge in this project. We have been interacting for a long time, well, not so long, but a couple of times, right? And yeah, that was amazing to have this interaction, to learn a lot on this project. And I hope it's still lots of things to do. And I hope that it can help many other people that want to join, that want to get started on open source, architecture, AI, anything else. So everyone is welcome here. And I ask everyone to welcome, a warm welcome here. And yeah, we'll be here to help you grow in your career, getting started with things that you are struggling with. So that's my last words, I think.
Great. So, thank you, Hugo.
So thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks Pedro. Thanks Money. Thanks everyone that joined us on this holiday. I hope you enjoyed the session and see you guys on the next week. Not next week, on the next
The
2
week after
weeks.
next.
Yeah.
The next
so see ya. Bye bye.
Take care. See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.